A continuation of the contribution of the black fighter. You have Holman Williams. I have him number one as the greatest middleweight fighter. I have Charlie Burley second. Holman Williams was in the ring with basically everyone who would fight him. Salute to Holman Williams. Georgie Pace, who was a bantamweight champion. Very decent fighter he was. His name was Georgie Pace. Black Murderers Row, Lloyd Marshall, phenomenal light heavyweight, never got a shot at a light heavyweight championship belt, although he defeated many champions for a non-title fight. Peter Jackson, better known as the Black Prince, who became the Australian and a colored heavyweight champion. Salute to the Black Prince, Peter Jackson. Heavyweight Eddie Blunt. Ernest Cat Robinson. Lem Franklin. Booker Beckworth. The Cincinnati Cobra, Ezzard Charles. What a fighter Ezzard Charles was. Willie Joyce, tremendous lightweight and welterweight. Jimmy Bivens out of Cleveland, Ohio. Coco Kid. Edward Lewis Hardwick, better known as the Coco Kid. Having number 3 is the greatest Black Murderers Row fighter. And my number 1, greatest Puerto Rican fighter of all times. Henry Armstrong, a 3-weight division, simultaneous belt carrier. One of the greatest fighters of all times. Held the featherweight, welterweight, and lightweight championship in 9 months. Lee Anderson was a colored light heavyweight champion. He found himself in a ring with Alabama Kid and Kid Norfolk. Lee Anderson from Harlem, some fighter he was. Kid Norfolk, one of the greatest fighters of all times. He was a colored light heavyweight champion. His name was William Ward. He was born July 10th, 1893 in Norfolk, Virginia. He'd wind up in Harlem, New York, where he would pass away. He stood 5 foot 10 inches and he weighed 165 to 183 pounds. It was promised in 1918 a shot at Jack Dempsey before Jack Dempsey was champion. Jack Dempsey refused. Phenomenal fighter was Kid Norfolk. Defeated Alabama Kid and Lee Anderson for the light heavyweight championship world in the colored division. Harry Dudley. Very, very good puncher he was. His name was Harry Dudley. He was a bantamweight out of California, as you can see. Shout out to Harry Dudley. Frank Warren. Very good light heavyweight. Salute to Bernie Miller. One of 50 referee and ring redhead magazines that I have. These are boxing programs from the West Coast. And it features Lloyd Marshall, Black Murderers Row, one of the greatest light heavyweights that never got a shot at the light heavyweight championship belt, although he fought many of champions who were not champion holders at the time and defeated all of them. Lloyd Marshall, phenomenal fighter he was. June 10th, 1944 edition of the Referee and Redhead magazine. James Battle out of Tennessee. Very good heavyweight he was. His name was James Battles. Larry Edridge, who was a colored middleweight champion. Trying to focus this here for you. Larry Edridge. See, there's a long history of black fighters. And throughout my duration on YouTube, I hope to get to most of them. I have 2 books, 1,000 pages each. That's 2,000 pages per book, 4,000 pages of information of black fighters from the 1600s to the 1920s. And this is one of the books. And a lot of the pages are full-page poses of those fighters. And they give you information that is heartbreaking. I'm not going to show them on YouTube. You have fighters hanging, fighters that have been whipped, battle royales, tons and tons of information I have in those books. Amazing. Cuba Havana, the featherweight, they call him the Cuban Bong Bong. His name was Kid Chocolate. Shout out to Kid Chocolate. Leo Patterson, very good fighter to your left. And as you can see here, his name is Young Henderson. He is to your right. Black Bill, great fighter he was. Salute to Black Bill. Bruce Flowers to your left, and Jack McVeigh to your right. Bruce Flowers is from New Rochelle, Yonkers, New York. Jack McVeigh was from Georgia, and he wound up moving to Harlem, New York. Jack McVeigh was a colored middleweight champion and lost his title to Harry Smith. Cecil Harris, very good heavyweight was Cecil Harris. Sparred with Joe Louis in many exhibitions. Salute Cecil Harris. Young Peter Jackson, who was the colored welterweight champion and lose his title to Coco Kid. He was from the Pacific Coast. And young Peter Jackson was a very good fighter. Like I said, he lost his title, the welterweight colored championship belt, to Coco Kid. And Coco Kid would lose his title to Charlie Billy in 1938. Salute to these great fighters. Canada Lee, very good welterweight, who was trained by Harry Wiley Sr. in Grubb's Gym on 116th Street in Harlem. He wound up becoming an actor. He played in a movie, Keep Punching, with Henry Armstrong. Salute, Canada Lee. Henry Armstrong and Sugar Ray Robinson, 2 of my top great fighters. As you can see here, Ray Robinson in front of his bar and grill with his pink flamingo Cadillac. He owned plenty of businesses between 124th and 125th Street, including his brownstone building. It was a low-income housing. Ray Robinson, Enterprise, one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in boxing history. Salute this magnificent fighter, the great Sugar Ray Robinson. I have 5 books of Ray Robinson, basically covering his entire career from amateur until after his career was over. I have unbelievable pictures of Ray Robinson. Continue to watch the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series as I display Ray Robinson's career. Henry Armstrong becomes the first black featherweight champion in Madison Square Garden when he defeated Petey Cerrone. Petey Cerrone was a featherweight champion who would retire after losing to Sammy Angot. Sammy Angot would unfortunately not make weight in 1941, and Ray Robinson would defeat him, but it would be a non-title shot. Sammy Angot would also be responsible for Willie Pep's 62-0 record streak being dismantled when he defeated Willie Pep. Sammy Angot was some fighter, but he would retire Petey Cerrone, and Henry Armstrong would stop Petey Cerrone in the 7th round. I believe it was the 6th round, and he would become the first black featherweight champion in the world. So as I end this black contribution, the great fighters in boxing history, I show you somewhat of a collage. This is only 10% of the pictures I have of black fighters. And I've studied them for over 30 years. And I take pride of these fighters because they've been through a great deal. And unfortunately, They will never be credited the way they should be. But on the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series, I will give them the highest honors. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. If you hang around my channel long enough, hopefully you'll learn some more information about these great black fighters. Emil Griffin, Virgil Akins, Kid Chocolate, Joe Gans. Joe Gans had actually invented the jab and the 1-2. You have Allentown Joe Gans, Panama Joe Gans, Henry Armstrong, a 3-weight division world champion, held the belt simultaneously. Ezzy Charles, 42-0 as an amateur. He was a featherweight champion, and he was also a heavyweight champion. Featherweight in the amateurs, and as a heavyweight, 1949 and 1950. He would defeat Joe Louis in 50 and Joe Walcott in 49. He would be knocked out in 51. Let me repeat myself. 1949, he would defeat Joe Walcott. 1950, he would defeat Joe Louis in New York's Yankee Stadium to solidify the title. 1951, he would lose his title to Jersey Joe Walcott. Walcott would become the oldest heavyweight champion at that time, 37 years of age. You have Al Walker and Roy Jones, Nobby Joe Gans, Ludwig Lightburn, Bob Satterfield, one of the hardest punchers in boxing. Then you have Elmer Violent Ray and Joe Gans. Percy Bassett out of Philadelphia, very good lightweight. Rory Calhoun, Sugar Hart, and George Sugar Costner. Cleo Shane, Elmer Violent Ray, George Blackburn, Kid Gavilan. Now here's the parallel between Kid Gavilan and George Dixon. George Dixon had faced September 6, 1892, fighter by the name of John Skelly. Beat him up so bad that they banned mixed boxing in the South for 52 years. 60 years. They banned boxing for 60 years. Kid Gavilan and a fighter by the name of Bobby Dykes from Texas would be the first mixed race fight that took place in 1952 since George Dixon and Jack Skelly in 1892. That's incredible. Tiger Jones. He disrupted Ray Robinson's comeback by defeating him. Jose Basora. As you can say, Archie Moore. 1952, we become light heavyweight champion. We defeated Joey Maxim. The Ugly Bear, Sonny Liston. Amazing fighter he was. He defeated Floyd Patterson twice. He became heavyweight champion and lost it to Muhammad Ali. Bob Satterfield, Ray Robinson. I mean, tons of fighters, but I just wanted to give you somewhat of an idea. Some of the greatest fighters in boxing history. Sam Langford I have ranked number 1. Joe Jeanette. Unbelievable fight with Sam McVeigh in 1909. Harry Wills was given a title opportunity, but he was never granted by Jack Dempsey in 1924 and 1926, although there was a contract. John Henry Lewis. John Henry Lewis was a kin of Tom Molyneux. Tom Molyneux, 1810, fought Tom Cribb in England, and injustice took place in that fight. But he was a kin of Tom Molyneux, was John Henry Lewis. Moses Ward. Charlie Burley, I have ranked number 2 as the greatest black Miller's Road fighter. A tremendous fighter he was. Chalky Wright. He took the title away from Joey Archibald and lost it to Willie Pep. Here you have Jack McVeigh. Bruce Flowers. Bruce Flowers was out of New Rochelle, New York. Very good lightweight. Luther Slugger White. In fact, he was in the ring with Sammy Engard, and that's how Engard wound up getting the title. You see here Panama Al Brown and Johnny Bratton. Bratton had a tremendous fight with Kid Gavilan. Gavilan would take the title away, the NBA version of the welterweight championship belt from Johnny Bratton. Johnny Bratton was out of Chicago. He was a lightweight, and he wound up becoming a welterweight. Chick Shuggs. And you can see here Johnny Saxon. He was from Newark, New Jersey. and he won the welterweight championship battle with the two-time welterweight champion. Sandy Sadler had 4 wars with Willie Pep. He was the longest reigning champion. He defeated undefeated. He was a phenomenal fighter. Was Joe Sandy Sadler out of Boston. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to my subscribers. Salute to the black fighters as I end my series. And the greatest contributions of the black fighters. Salute.